So I've been drinking coffee for as long as I can remember, and the first thing I wanted to do when I moved out was to build my own coffee bar. And the space has gone through a lot of different iterations. So in this video, I wanted to share with you guys the current coffee setup. So what you're looking at here is my very first coffee setup in this house. This footage was recorded back in April 2023, which was around 6 months after I moved in. At the time, I was just kind of figuring things out, and I got inspired by a video from Reynard Lowell and his coffee setup. Back then, I was using a Breville Oracle dual boiler, which I picked off from Marketplace, and it was a great machine, especially for the value, but unfortunately, it ended up breaking on me. And that was kind of the moment where I decided if I was going to upgrade, I wanted to properly commit to it. So I headed to La Marzocco to pick up my next machine, which I'll talk about later. Along with that upgrade, I also started changing the setup itself. I swapped out the IKEA Moslander picture ledge for an IKEA lac shelf, which I DIY'd some LED strips underneath to give the space a bit more light. That version of the setup stuck around for a while, but over time I realized the cabinet itself was just a bit too small for my workflow, so I ended up giving that cabinet to my cousin and moved over to an IKEA kitchen cabinet instead. I used that setup for around a year, and while it was pretty functional, it honestly felt a bit too big for the space. Eventually I came across a photo of someone else's setup, and that's when I was inspired. I wanted something that sat kind of in the middle, so not too small but not as bulky as a kitchen cabinet. So that led me to my current setup, which is the IKEA Stockholm cabinet. It's discontinued here in Australia, so I had to hunt one down in Marketplace, and luckily I found one. It has a few nicks and dings, but it doesn't really bother me, and honestly it's probably one of my favorite parts of the setup. It's the perfect size, it's not too big, not too small, and doesn't really overpower the space. The color is a nice deep walnut, which is my favorite wood tone, and it sits super nicely into the kitchen without feeling like it's taking over the room. Starting off, we have the main piece of the setup, the coffee machine. So this is the La Marzocco Linea Micro. After my Breville broke, I realized I wanted something that felt more like a buy it for life kind of piece. I've always had that mindset of buying things that offer the best value, and for a long time the Breville fit that perfectly. You get a lot for what you pay, and it makes great coffee. At some point you do start paying for diminishing returns, and with the Linea Micro, a big part of that is the design and how it fits into the space. It probably wasn't the smartest financial decision, but I genuinely have zero regrets. It's one of my favorite pieces in the house, and I use it every single day. I won't go too deep into the specs here, but it's compact, it heats up quickly, the steam one is extremely powerful, and most importantly, it's super consistent. So because this machine didn't have a built-in grinder like my Breville, I had to get a separate grinder, and I went with the Niche Zero grinder. This has been perfect for my workflow. It's a single dose grinder, which means I'm only grinding what I need each time, and it keeps things simple and clean. The design is simple, the grinds are consistent, and it's super easy to dial in. Japan, which makes it ideal for daily use. Having used the built-in Breville grinder, you can definitely notice the difference with the Niche Zero. So in between the Linear Micra and the Niche, I've got a simple knockbox that I picked up off Amazon. Nothing fancy, but I really like how the lighter tone contrasts with the deep walnut of the IKEA Stockholm. It's functional, but it also fits the space visually. Next to that is my WDT tool, and it's basically a tool to break up clumps in the coffee grounds before you tamp. That way you get a more even extraction. It's definitely a small step that makes the workflow feel a bit more intentional. For my tamper, I'm using the Force Tamper. This was actually a gift from my friends, which I really appreciate. If you're watching this, I love you guys. And it's a self-leveling tamper, so it helps keep the tamp consistent every time. Again, small details, but they definitely add up. On the left of my setup, I keep the fellow Atmos, which is a vacuum sealed canister for my beans. I like having it on the cabinet because sometimes the seal does loosen, and seeing it there reminds me to re-vacuum it. It's practical, but it also looks really clean on display. For my scale, I'm using the Asaya Luna. The main reason I chose this was because of how slim it is. With the Linear Micra, there isn't much clearance under the group head, so I needed the lowest profile scale I could find, and this fits perfectly. Next to the Linear Micra, I had this little hook and a towel on it. This is basically just to clean up the steam one, and also to dry the portafilter every time I finish using it. To the left of the setup, we've got a little matcha corner which Jolly primarily uses. There's a little Smisky holding a bamboo whisk that I super glued so it doesn't fall over. It's mostly decorative but definitely adds character. We store our matcha in an Ippudo tea steel canister that we got in Japan. It's a really nice way to decant matcha from the bag and keep everything feeling cohesive. The whisk is from Matcha Tokyo in Japan, and we actually don't use this one. It's more for display. I love the gradient from dark to light brown and how the top just balloons out. To me, it looks super clean. And all of that sits on a Yoshitomo Nara piece that I picked up from Momo in Japan. It doesn't really serve much of a purpose other than looking cool and kind of separating it from the coffee setup, but I think little design details like that make the space feel more personal. Underneath the cabinet is where things get a little bit less aesthetic but more practical. I haven't fully optimized the space yet, but it's mostly just tools that I don't need to keep on display. I keep my Lamazoko machine cleaner down there along with a large airscape container. I usually buy my beans by the kilo, so I store them in the airscape and then decant the smaller amounts into the fellow Atmos on top. I have a small handheld vacuum from Amazon to quickly clean up stray coffee grounds. There's a chocolate shaker because in Australia, cappuccinos come with chocolate powder, some coasters for guests, some spare milk pitchers, and a small basket that holds random espresso tools and parts. Opening up my drawer, I keep my dosing cup, a spoon for scooping beans, and a small spray bottle for RDT, which helps reduce static so the grounds don't stick everywhere. I've also got some extra portafilter attachments, some spare parts, and clean towels. Opening up the right side of the cabinet, it's mostly just tea storage. We got some extra matcha, tea leaves, tea bags, and at the bottom, some poorly organized takeaway cups. Moving up to the lac shelf, this is where we display more personal pieces. There's Jolly's growing collection of matcha tins, some empty canisters we kept because they look nice, and a little frog drinking coffee because we love coffee. I've also framed these two certificates from a latte art course we did in Vietnam. They don't really mean much because my latte art is still kind of mid, but I felt like it's a cool memory to display. And on the top shelf, we've got a few posters and a devil's ivy plant to bring in some greenery and soften the space a bit. On top of the machine, I have a little shelf that holds all my favorite cups that I've collected over time. When choosing these cups, I actually had one main rule, which is they had to fit under the group head with the scale. The clearance on the Linear Micra is pretty tight, so a lot of cups just don't work. So every cup you see here fits perfectly with the scale underneath. So starting with the smaller glossy ones, these ones are around 220ml, and I got these from Kappabashi Street, which is like a kitchen district in Japan. I use these when I want something slightly stronger and a bit more compact. They're simple, clean, and easy to pour into. I have them in black and in blue. Next up are these similar ones to the ones before, but they're slightly bigger. They're around 230ml and they have a matte finish. I have them in a brown color and a sage green. Then we move into my most used cups. These ones are 250ml from Made in Japan, which is a ceramic store in South Melbourne. These ones are definitely my favorite just because I feel like 250ml is the sweet spot for double ristretto flat white. It's strong but not too milky. I have these in 4 different colorways. I have a white, sand, green, and a red one. So on the top shelf, I have handled cups. The smallest handled ones are from Rokume in Nara. I got yellow because Jolly's favorite color is yellow, and a red one because my favorite color is red. And these are around 220 mils. They're more sentimental than practical, to be honest. Next to those are the not Neutralino cups and saucers. These are around like 240 mils, and I love how wide the opening is. It makes pouring latte art way easier. The flat handles look super clean. And the biggest cups I own are the Hasami porcelain ones at 280 mils. These are for when I want a proper latte with a double shot of espresso. They've got a grainy texture to them and it feels really nice in hand. And that's basically the cup collection. So I know a setup like this can look excessive to some people. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just coffee. But I think like any hobby, once you're in it, you start to appreciate the small nuances, the workflow, the tools, the tiny differences in taste. It becomes less about the caffeine and more about the ritual. For me, making coffee every morning is something I genuinely look forward to. It's 10 minutes where I slow down before the day starts, and having a setup that I enjoy looking at that feels clean and intentional just makes that ritual better. So if you guys like this video, make sure to subscribe and give this video a like, and I will see you in the next vlog.